Donald Trump is an out-of-control dictator. You know, that's what we hear from the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media. And it's what we hear from governors, you know, like Andrew Cuomo, who back during the beginning of the pandemic and mandates and the president saying that if these governors didn't get it together, he would do it for them. And Cuomo was the first one to say, he's not our king. He's the president. He can't override the governors. Yet isn't that what the Biden campaign is running on right now? In fact, in his big national ad campaign, Joe Biden is actually stating that if he's elected president, one of the things that he is going to do regarding the coronavirus pandemic or plandemic is require a national mandate to wear masks. Now, can you imagine if President Trump even hinted that he was going to do that? Immediately, CNN and PMSNBC would spring into action and they would demand that Nancy Botox Pelosi, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer, Jerry the Nads Nadler, and Adam Schiff for Brains draw up articles of impeachment immediately. Trump is overstepped, overreached, he's gotta go. All of that mandating, especially on this coronavirus, the shutting down of schools, the shutting down of businesses, the shutting down of churches, and the absolute dearth and silence on the protests and the rioting and cities on fire that the Democrats aren't talking about at all in their snooze fest Democratic National Convention is all building up to a backlash against the Democrats because it's all going to be hung on Joe Biden. And I'm telling you, not only is New York going to vote for Trump, so is California. I know, you think I've lost it. You think I am dreaming. You think I'm on fantasy land. Some of you are, is he on crack? What do you mean, California? Vote for Trump? You understand how wildly off the rails, insane liberal that place is? Well, it's liberal in places like Los Angeles and San Francisco. I'll give you that. We know where the hotbed of liberalism is on the left coast. We understand that Hollywood is absolutely just out to lunch libloon land. But that's not all of California. And even within California, you have what I call convenient liberals. In other words, they're liberal because that's the thing to do, especially if you want to conduct business, if you want to be accepted into the right social circles, etc., etc., etc. Same is true in New York City. And let me share with you what I actually see happening right now. All of this shutdown and this push of fear. Yes, there are the committed libloons that absolutely believe that we are facing the plague. They do think that Dr. Fauci is the be-all, end-all. He's our Moses. Pardon me. All right, that said, there are people that think that Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, Governor Newsom, they know exactly what needs to be done during this pandemic. But there's a whole lot of people, and I'm talking about even Democrats and even liberals who are quietly looking at all this saying, we cannot live our lives like this. First of all, this plague is not the plague. The survival rate is really, really, really great. We haven't had anywhere near the cases that we did even with the swine flu or SARS or H1N1, whatever name we're giving it this month. So that said, they see the politics at play here. They're watching their own wealth evaporate because of these mandates, these lockdowns, this draconian overreach. And I think even they, the classic liberals, see this for what it is. It is really Big Brother being intrusive and taking control. Control of every area of your life. And classic liberals, they don't like it any more than conservatives do, or strict constitutionalists do. And on that point, though they may not speak about it vocally, we are united. And they are going to speak in the voting booth. But aside from that, Governor Newsom has really declared war on the evangelical community on the left coast. Now, it's true. Many mainline Protestant churches and the Catholic Church, they are, forgive me for saying it this way, in bed with the government. Long time ago, they traded the gospel for this idea of just doing good social work. Your mainline denominations, jumped on with the liberal agenda because they believed under the welfare state that that's what Jesus would do. You're going to feed the poor. You're going to feed the hungry. You're going to take care of them. You're going to clothe them. You're going to look out for them. And what the church mistakenly did, and I'm talking about mainline denominations, they mistakenly gave over to the state what was the role of the church to do, because we're supposed to be providing that type of care for people, with the one caveat of giving them water from which they will never thirst again, the gospel, the hope of the gospel. But mainline churches traded all that to do good social work, and then eventually it infected their theology and their faith and their non-practice. Said all that to say this: there are still churches, and lots of them, and even within these mainline denominations, there are solid believers who are looking at everything that's happening and the persecution on the church are saying, wait a minute, what is this? We can't abide by this. And as a result, they are now woke. And I don't mean woke in the sense that liberals love to speak of woke. They are awake now. And all it was going to take was one pastor who is respected, even if he is not running in all the same circles, but a pastor who has managed to keep his ministry out of controversy when it comes to things like whether it's immorality or impropriety. And that pastor on the left coast, the west coast, happens to be Dr. John MacArthur. He is pastor of Grace Community Church in the Los Angeles area. He has a college, a seminary. Now, some find his teaching a little on the dry side, but certainly he is very well respected in the evangelical community, in the fundamentalist community, and even among your non-denominationalists. And it was John MacArthur who said, enough is enough. He went through the shutdown because in the beginning he thought that's what everybody should do to be a good citizen and not wanting to cause controversy. But he got tired of preaching to an empty building. Well, he joked and said he was only preaching to his wife. But he didn't lock his building, and neither did I. And people just started showing up. Yep, I know exactly what he's talking about. And he wasn't going to be a police agent and put guards at the doors and tell people who wanted to come in that they couldn't come in. He just didn't do that. And before he realized it, there were 3,000 people sitting in his building. Well, Governor Newsom brought the hammer down and declared that churches could start to meet, but you could only meet in groups of 50, and then it was groups of 10, and if you did meet, you had to wear masks, and you couldn't sing, because apparently singing spreads the virus. I mean, it was just off-the-rails nonsense, and John MacArthur said, wait a minute. We got protests going on in the streets. You're doing nothing about that, but yet you're infringing on me. And he was told by the state of California they have a constitutional right to protest. Wait a minute. The First Amendment also grants the church the right to meet, to assemble, to worship freely. And so John MacArthur, as a Protestant, you do know that the root word of Protestant is protest. We are the original protesters, if you will. The idea that the Protestant denominations protested the Roman Catholic Church and came out so that they could preach a clear gospel, not rooted in superstition, tradition, and certainly without a pope, that Jesus Christ is the head of the church, not a denominational headquarters somewhere. So that was the start of what we call the Protestant movement. Now, some of us, I don't consider myself to be a Protestant. I'm going to get in a little theology here just for a moment. We trace our roots not to protesters. We don't trace our roots to Puritans. We trace our roots directly back to Jesus Christ, to the disciples. So some of us don't consider ourselves Protestants because we don't ever consider ourselves to have been part of the, quote, official mother church. We trace our roots directly past that back to the Lord. That's theology, and you can come to my church and I'll teach you all about that. So John MacArthur, in a stroke of genius, walked to his pulpit and said,
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to welcome you to the Grace Community Church Peaceful Protest.
Boom. Immediately, the country rallied. Churches from coast to coast said yes. Churches that were also facing being shut down or limited in how many people they could have inside, and they were, handing out masks and taking temperatures in their church lobby. By the way, I know churches that do that. I have friends who pastor. You've got people stationed in your church lobbies scanning foreheads so they can get in the building. Listen to me. Stop that stupidity. Stop that asininity right now. You are playing into the system. You are doing the devil's work for him. What are you thinking? Knock that nonsense off. That is nothing but pure BS. And I'm not talking about a Bachelor of Science. That is pure BS. Stop it. You are feeding the fear. You are literally playing the enemy's game. Knock that nonsense off. Open your church, have church, get the mask off people. If somebody wants to wear a mask because that makes them feel safe, fine. But I will not wear the mask of the beast. I will not wear the mask of fear. I'm under a state mandate and I don't wear it. I walk into stores without it and I almost look at them like I dare you to say something. And when they do, they get more in return than they thought they were going to hear from me. But I continue to live my life. I will not wear this symbol that says it's scary and there's a disease and we're all going to die and it's all President Trump's fault, because that's really what the mask is all about. Isn't that right, Fauci? Isn't that right, Governor DeWiner? Isn't that right, Newsom? Isn't that right, Whitlis over there in Michigan? So I'm not going to play that game. And this stupidity of I can wear a mask, I have to wear it into a restaurant, but once I'm seated at my table, I can take it off. What? The virus doesn't follow me from the host station to the table? And then you idiots with your shower curtains that you're hanging up in between tables. What? The virus is so deadly, if we don't hang up these shower curtains, you'll die when you come in here to eat. But with the shower curtains there, it's so stupid, it just hits the curtain and dies. It doesn't go around it. All of these plexiglass barriers that I'm seeing. Oh, stop this nonsense. Just stop it, stop it, stop it. And you pastors, you're feeding into this. Knock it off. So John MacArthur, pressing on, going to have his services. Well, the governor said, no, you're not. The city of Los Angeles said, no, you're not. And then a judge stepped in and said, constitutionally, you can't stop them. Well, they found another judge to say, yes, we can stop them, and we're going to. And John MacArthur, he kept on meeting.
We're having church. It's actually hard to figure out exactly what the city is trying to do with us and to us, but we know they don't want us to do exactly what we're doing right now. And we're not meeting because we want to be rebellious. We're meeting because our Lord has commanded us to come together and worship him. There was a court order that granted this church and this church alone the right to meet indoors, and the powers of the city were not happy about that. They were going to be asking us to do two things, social distance and wear masks. That was until yesterday when the city, we agreed, look, we'll comply for a few weeks. They asked that for 3 weeks. We're not wanting to be defiant. We will do what is reasonable. That was not enough for the city, so they went to the appellate court at the last minute on Saturday late and had that order removed. So the good news is you're here, you're not distancing, and you're not wearing masks.
Oh, boom! Now, John MacArthur and I, on a theological level, we disagree on the doctrine of Calvinism, but I completely, number one, he is my brother in the Lord. He is born again. He is, in most subjects, an excellent Bible commentator. But when it comes to this issue politically, he is dead on the money. I support him 150%. Absolutely. And recently, he said this week, he does not fear the police of Los Angeles. In fact, he's got a good relationship with them.
The police love Grace Church. I'll tell you that. All last week, we had them here for training. I talked to the chief of the police in LA. He said this to me: there's no scenario that I can imagine in which the police would ever come against Grace Community Church. We are concerned with the law, not with health ordinances. They're our friends. We've been their friends for years. I just received another plaque from the LAPD for the service we render to them and have for many years. So they feel like they're under attack by the politicians who are supposed to be the fathers of the society, but they're murderous. They're killing babies at 364 a day in California in the womb, which is the most obvious case of premeditated murder there is. And they're turning over every righteous standard in this society that they can. So they have forfeited the right to call themselves a government that protects the good and is a terror to the evil. They've flipped that. The police, for us, are the last agency of that. We're standing with them as they're being attacked, and with the church's right to continue to meet, to be salt and light in the world.
Now let's put all this together and let me explain to you exactly why I believe President Trump is going to do what has not been done since Ronald Reagan. He is going to be the Republican to win the state of California. Governor Newsom, like so many before you, you tried to take on God and you're going to lose. Just ask Pharaoh how that whole go after Moses and the children of Israel worked out for him, when he and his entire army were then drowned in the Red Sea. How'd that work out? How'd that work out when Queen Jezebel decided she was going to wipe out the prophet of God on Mount Carmel, and she sent her 800 prophets to take on little old Elijah? How'd that work out? How'd that work out when Adolf Hitler decided to exterminate the very people that God said were his chosen people? How'd that work out for Hitler? How does it work out every time some would-be tyrant says, we've had enough of this church nonsense, we've had enough of this God stuff, this is going to be crushed and put down now? Which is exactly what Newsom is doing, and declaring it was okay to gather to peacefully protest, but was not okay to gather in church. And if you did, you had to wear a mask, and you weren't allowed to sing. In other words, you weren't allowed to worship. You weren't allowed to exercise your First Amendment constitutional right. He was declaring himself an emperor, a czar, a dictator. And he was going to silence God. This is going to work out for him, because even moderate churches in California are now woke. And I remind you of the words that were shared to me many years ago by an atheist who actually runs a little organization called Atheists for God. And when I asked him about that, I said, why is it that you will fight for religious liberty in this country when you're not even a believer? And I'll never, ever forget what he told me. He said, Pastor, I don't believe like you believe, but I do understand the symbolism in that if the government can successfully silence, muzzle, or remove the rights of the church, then in their mind, what they've done is they have told God what to do. And if they can tell God what to do, if they can take away God's rights, what's to stop him from taking away your rights, my rights? We're just peons in the symbolism of us and God. Now, if an atheist gets that, I wish more pastors and churches would wake up and see what's happening. And they are in California. And here's what's building. You're going to have the perfect storm forming, just like I said is happening in New York right now. It's the perfect storm for Trump. You're going to have classic liberals that are looking around at all these draconian measures and saying, wait a minute, wait. This is what I protested back against in the day, man. I didn't want the government telling me who to love, how to love, what to smoke. Now they're telling me I got to wear a mask, where I can go, can't go, when I can go, I can't go, stay home. Man, I didn't protest for that. You understand that the classic liberals are looking at all this saying, I can't support this. I can't vote for this. And though they may hate Donald Trump, they will go into the voting booth, they will hold their nose, they will close their eyes, and they will flip the lever for him because they'll think, as much as I don't like him as a person, one thing I do know, I'll be able to keep my rights under him. Bum, ba-dum, bum. Churches. And reading some of these evangelical publications that are telling their believers, now listen, Donald Trump is, he's been an immoral man and he's just don't vote for him. The vast, 95% of the evangelical world is looking around right now saying, right now we need a fighter, and President Trump is a fighter. And can you imagine what would be happening to us right now if we had a witness protection Romney in the Oval Office? Do you understand how badly we'd be steamrolled right now? Everything would be shut down. And you would be preparing for a Biden presidency because there's absolutely positively no way that a Mitt Romney or a Marco Rubio or any of the other Clodneys that were running, from Jeb Bush, that they would have been able to fend off the onslaught of the coronavirus propaganda. And then once Joe Biden seized office and Kamala Harris and her puppeteers were actually running the country, what we would be in for? Wake up. And I'm telling you, in California, there is a backlash brewing. And I believe it's going to happen from coast to coast. You are going to see blue states flip red that you can't even possibly dream or fathom of right now. I'm telling you. Call me prophet, Marty, but I'm telling you, it's building, it's happening. And you aren't going to see it necessarily indicated in the polls. You certainly won't hear it talked about by the media. And I think even most of conservative media, because a lot of them, though they're good people in conservative media, they're looking at things politically, they're looking at trends, etc., because this is what they're trained to do. You and I, who are people of faith, we also understand that once in a while, because the Bible does say God has chosen the simple things to confound the wise, every once in a while God just sort of shows up on the scene and reshuffles the deck and sends all the experts' minds exploding. And that's what's happening. That's what's building right now. I'm telling you, President Trump is going to carry California and New York and some other blue states. And oh, baby, you think the last election night, watching the media outlets go into meltdown and despondency, can you imagine what PMSNBC, Rachel Mad Cow, Don Lemonhead on CNN, and even the young jerks, the young Turks online are going to do when they see California called for Donald J. Trump? How many movie stars will commit suicide? Can you imagine Alyssa Milano living in a state that voted for the man she loathes, hates, and despises? Can you imagine Nancy Botox Pelosi being a representative of a state that flipped for Trump? Come on, California. Join the party. It's going to be a blast. Say, Pastor, I think you've lost it. No. It is time for us to go covert. We have friends around the country, don't we? You do, I do. Even the ones that hate Trump. Tell them a vote for Trump is a vote for freedom. If Trump were smart, and he's brilliant, by the way, I can't wait to see his convention because it's going to blow this Democratic snooze fest out of the water. I predict at some point he shows up live in a venue with lots of people and the media's heads explode. Well, he can't be live and he can't have people. Yeah, yes, he can. It'll blow all of their little pre-tape YouTube videos out of the water. He's for law and order. And people are looking around and they are seeing their businesses destroyed. Even liberals are seeing their homes destroyed. They don't want that. They don't want that. And we've talked about that right now it's a clear pick. What do you want America to be? A constitutional republic or a socialist nation? But we need to break it down and make it even more simple. Because you got a bunch of young people who think socialism be good, man. But even young people right now, they're sick and tired of, they can't go to bars. They can't do anything. And if you do go on vacation, you got to wear a mask everywhere you go. And half the stuff you want to do on your vacation, you can't do because it's closed. People want to get back to normal. They want to get back to their lives. The message needs to be a vote for Trump is a vote for freedom. A vote for Biden is a vote for slavery. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to. This is a slave mask. This is a muzzle. This is a bit in your mouth. This is a, we will tell you what to do, and you will do it. We can get the American people, even on the left, even liberal, even Democrat, to vote against that. Hey, that's it for this rant, which might be considered an educational tirade. Thank you so much for watching. Spread this video. Spread it everywhere. Talk about it. Get your friends to watch it. Let's drive the numbers up on this one. I'm serious. Let's really, really help me push this one, please. That said, make sure you're a subscriber to the channel, smack the bell, and click the word all to get notifications of my next rant.